Alright, hey music makers out there, James Russell here, and welcome to part 2 of Which Door is Right for You. So last time we covered Pro Tools. Pro Tools, I showed you the ins and outs. It's a non-scientific review, just exactly my experience of Pro Tools, who it's for and who it's not. So today we're going to do exactly the same thing, and today we're covering Ableton. So roll the tape. Now the difference between Ableton Live and say Pro Tools is the two main views. They're similar but not the same. So there's a session view and an arrangement view. Most normal DAWs will have a mix window and an arrangement window. So they're quite similar. Let's have a look at a couple of the pros and cons, see who it's for and see who it's not. So first and foremost, the thing about Ableton is usability and ease of use and just the ergonomics of trying to actually make music. Now, whether it's launching clips in the session view and letting yourself jam out to a couple of loops, Ableton is probably one of the most user-friendly out of all the DAWs. It has a completely different format to most of them, as far as a lot of the plugins appear in the window down below, and you can save those plugin chains. So look, as far as the pros, usability is definitely number one when it comes to Ableton. The next big pro for Ableton, and this is going to be both a pro and a con, is the way Ableton handles audio. Now, Ableton essentially warps every bit of audio that comes into the program. Now, that can be both good and bad. As far as the pro, it's fantastic because it means that you can bring in clips, sync them quickly, slave them all to a tempo, and then if you're doing, say, remixing, which is what a lot of DJ producers do, you can slow it down to 90 BPM, you can pitch it up to 135, you can, using the parameters of the warp engine, you can change pitch, you can don't change pitch, you can do a whole lot of things like that. So it makes it really easy if you're trying to find a new style with what you're trying to do or what you're trying to do with those clips. So the way it handles audio is a really, really big one. Another one is the way it handles MIDI or virtual instruments. Now Ableton works really well like that. It's kind of built to be working with virtual instruments. So those instruments, the MIDI works quite well, a lot of the functionality works kind of well. As far as when it comes to being able to map things like encoders and parameters, Ableton is definitely right up there. It's one of the few programs where you can right click on something, use a MIDI encoder. If you've got a MIDI keyboard, use your encoder, click learn, and next thing you know that parameter's been mapped, and then you get that real world feeling of being able to tweak parameters using your MIDI keyboard and an encoder. So that's a really big benefit. The other big benefit is plugin protocols. Now what I mean by that is that Ableton will actually take both AU and VST plugins. What does that mean? Well, DAWs like Logic, essentially they'll only work with AU plugins, or Pro Tools only works with AAS or RTAS, Cubase basically only VST, whereas Ableton works with them all, which is quite good if you've got, say, a boutique little VST plugin, say something like the Sausage Fattener, which everyone seems to love, you know it's going to work in Ableton. So there's a couple of the big pluses. The big pros for Ableton is how easy it is to learn and its usability. The fact that the warp engine means you can change tempo and things like that a lot. The way it works with MIDI, which is quite good, although I would say the MIDI window is a little bit small being stuck in that same window as the normal interface. I like having a separate window, but doesn't really matter too much. And also the fact that it works with both VST and AU plugins. Okay, as far as the cons. Well, the cons are a different story. For me, it's all down to personal preference, and as I said, this is a review to see who Ableton is for and isn't. I like working with Ableton. It works as a great little sketch pad, but one of my bugbears is that you're stuck with one window. It is built for laptop DJs, so multi-monitor setup, up until, I don't know if it's changed with Ableton 10, but as far as 9 goes, multi-monitor setups aren't really working with Ableton. You got to hit the tab button to shift between session window and arrange window, and that's kind of a bugbear for me, man, especially if I'm working with a band or I'm recording something in the studio. I want to be able to see the mix window in one window, arrangement in the next, and work out what's going on at a glance. The other thing is the way Ableton handles audio. Now, it was just a pro, but now it's a con. So basically, there's two sides to this story, and what I mean by that is Ableton's not very good, especially with its I/O, which is a bit clunky. Ableton's not very good at handling audio when it comes to things like multi-mic setups, drum kits and all the rest of it. I've said it before and I'll say it again that basically any kind of warp engine that warps the audio, or elastic audio, anything that kind of warps the audio does actually ruin the phase coherence of that audio. That's the reason why I'm old school. I like to have everything chopped into actual audio pieces, like what happens with Pro Tools, and then be able to slave it to a grid and quantize it. Now, Ableton treats every bit of audio that comes in there and warps it. Now the other thing that really bugs me about that is it creates this little warp file that essentially attaches to every bit of audio, even if it hasn't treated it. You can essentially turn it off, but it's a whole lot of extra files that are cluttering up my system. The other thing as well as the way it handles audio is the fact that there's no playlists. Playlist means that essentially even if you've got multi-mic setups or just a single vocal, you want to be able to do numerous takes of whatever that is and then do what's called a comp. You want to have your playlists, which have been an absolute godsend since they've done it. Playlists, and then you essentially swipe comp, so you grab the intro from one and copy it up to a channel. Ableton, if you wanted to do that, you'd literally have to stop, create another track, sing another take, stop, create another track, sing another take, and then you have to compile them onto one track. The fact that a lot of DAWs have playlists now is actually quite amazing, and it makes your workflow so much easier when working with things like bands, with the vocalist trying to get a good lead vocal, or with a drummer or a whole band, say you're tracking live, which I do very, very often. You can do numerous takes and then do a compilation of that later. You can't do something like that in Ableton. So Ableton's really only good for one single mic plugged in, or if you're working with an interface. So as far as the cons, we've got one window. The other con for Ableton is the fact that I don't usually use sessions and little clips for triggering it these days. I generally will write proper arrangements, so that whole section of the window has become redundant, and I actually don't like how the plugins are listed down below because I can't actually see all the plugins being used at a glance. So as far as that session window, it's not really great, especially if you're a mix engineer looking to do big ass mixes. You know, say you're going to 100 tracks or more, Ableton is certainly not the kind of thing you want to be working in. You want to be working in something where you've got both windows, you know, you can see all your channels and the plugins that you're using. So the way it handles that, so essentially we've got the mix window, the way it handles audio, and also the fact that it doesn't show the inserts in the mix window or the session window is not great for mixing. The other thing I will say, and this is just personal preference, and it's good sometimes because I'm an electronic producer as well as I do a lot of acoustic work. As far as electronic, if you're writing in Ableton, you tend to sound electronic. It doesn't sound really acoustic. Even if you're writing rock tracks, everything's kind of a little bit more electro. Now that's great if you say Flume or Deadmau5 or something like that, but if you're trying to record a rock band, maybe Ableton's not for you. So in summary, man, Ableton is really great if you're a laptop DJ, if you're looking for usability, and if you're looking for something you can get up and running really quickly, or you want to map your MIDI keyboard. But if you're recording rock bands, or if you're doing, you know, large multi-mic setups, or you want to use playlists, I wouldn't say that Ableton's for you. So look, that's only my 2 cents. It's a quick review, it's non-scientific, and it's just giving you my opinion. I love Ableton as a program, but I use it as a sketch pad, and then I try and mix and use real audio when I bounce stuff back into Pro Tools. So I hope you liked that. If you did, hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave me a comment if you want me to cover something, because I want to make this channel about people learning how to make music. And I'm James Russell, and I'll catch you next episode.